Welcome to Krush House Cappers. I'm your host, Wayne Allyn Root. This is the show for every type of sports gambler. Whether you're an amateur, whether you're a pro, whether you're a high roller, whether this is the first bet you've ever made in your life, all that matters is if you love the single most important part about betting, winning, beating the point spread. All right, so great show today. Don't go anywhere because it starts now. It's Big Al McMordie, the greatest technical handicapper, a Vegas handicapping legend and the greatest technical handicapper in the history of this business, and Frank Nicotero, who is one heck of a professional gambler himself. We're talking to Frank and Big Al right now.
Love it. Love being with you anytime we can.
How are you doing, Wayne?
All right, so let me open it up. I've got Frank with me. I got Big Al with me. Let me open up with Big Al. How do you pick point spread winners? You're known as the most honored technical handicapper in the good old United States of America. That's quite a title. How do you pick point spread winners?
Well, Wayne, there's, as I always say, there's a lot of ways to skin a cat. Every handicapper is different. When you're asking how I personally pick point spread winners, I'm a technical and situational handicapper. So one of the things I like to do is take a look at a team's most recent performance. And oftentimes I'm going to be, taking teams that are off bad events or going against teams off good events. So if a team in the NFL, say, is off a 20-point blowout loss, I'm more apt to play on that team. And if a team is off back-to-back straight up and against the spread wins, I'm more apt to go against the team, because the NFL, much more so than college football, for example, is an up and down league. Teams don't stay up forever. The league has very competitive teams. So I'm always looking to go with a hot team or go against a cold and go against, with a cold team and go against a hot team.
Frank, is that something you use as well?
It's unbelievable. Yeah, I love what he said about a team that that didn't cover the spread or gets blown out. I mean, you want to come back and look at that team because you know that they caught hell from coaches all week, and these guys are going to come back hopefully and play a much better game. So just talking with Al before on the podcast and listening to him, I've learned stuff like that, and it's stuff that I have been doing a while. I mean, you got to look at those performances the week before. I couldn't agree more.
Isn't it funny? We got three guys on the screen who do the exact same thing, and that's why we're all winners. I mean, my whole life I've watched games. I love watching NFL, and I've got TV sets set up, a whole bunch of screens, and I'll watch almost every game every week. And the teams that stink up my TV set the worst, I bet on them next week. And the teams that look perfect, I bet against them next week. To my mind, whatever you see on that screen is going to influence your bet next week. And the average person says, I want the winner and I'm going against the loser. And I'm a guy who says, I want the loser and I'm going against the winner. So we're talking about the same things. We all, we may come up with different picks now and then, but our strategies are very similar at the heart of what we do. Al?
Yeah, that's right, Wayne. To be a good handicapper, you must either have information that the market doesn't have, which I do, or you must be able to process the information that is publicly available better. And for example, as you were just talking about, let's say you're watching a Monday Night Football game and you see a team get blown out on that Monday night. The average person watching that game thinks, oh, I'm not going to take that team the next week. And so what happens is the line gets mispriced. There's value in the number the next week. So when I see a team get blown out on Monday Night Football, especially if they lost by 18, 21, 24 points, I'm really interested in taking that team the next week because I'm going to get line value.
And Frank, you mentioned that the coaches rip into them all week long. You know what I think the real problem is? The media. If you lose badly and you're below expectations, all week they call you a bum in the New York Post and the New York Daily News. I'm from New York, so I remember those days. And I love a team that's ripped on all week long by the coaches, by the media, and probably by their wives and girlfriends. You're a bunch of bums. You're a bum. I'm going to leave you. And you get focused and you win because you got a chip on your shoulder. I love the guy who says, I got a battery on my shoulder. I dare you to knock it off. So that's kind of my strategy. If your wife won't speak to you and your kids say you suck, I'm betting on you this week.
I love that you went back. I believe that was Robert Conrad with the battery on his shoulder. The
correct.
actor, yeah, I dare you. But, billboard material. You nailed it, Wayne. I mean, these guys, they still do make newspapers, and they still do post that stuff up on the walls for sure. I've talked to some players, some friends of mine that used to play baseball, I mean, that stuff gets to you. And the media every day dissecting a team and telling, teammates who did horribly, and they're going to pass that on to their buddies and let them know. I mean, yeah, billboard material is huge.
Well, let's
Right.
also look at a very recent example. It's not football, it's hockey, but we'll take a look at what just happened last week as we record this interview. The Tampa Bay Lightning blew out the New York Islanders 8-0, and that's one of the biggest blowouts in NHL playoff history. Now, you look at what happened the next game. Look at what the odds makers did with the price. In the game that the Islanders played before at home, the line was Tampa Bay minus $1.29. Where did they open the price the next game, which was at the New York Islanders in Game 6? They opened it at minus 150. So the price went from minus 129 up to minus 150 just on the heels of a blowout 8-0 loss.
And that's what you call value, right? In other words,
That's
by
right.
taking the bad team, you get value. And that's funny enough. Benjamin Graham, the greatest stock picker of all time, was called the value investor. And he said that anytime nobody wants a stock, that's the stock you buy. And anytime everybody wants the stock and a cab driver's talking about it, that's the stock you want to sell short. Football and sports in general, the exact same thing. I call it value investing. You always want to go where they ain't. And that the great, was it which hitter said that? Wee Willie something. Hit them where they ain't. Wee Willie something. Wasn't it Wee Willie something? There was some famous 1910 guy who said, hit them where they ain't.
Wee Willie Keeler, maybe.
Yeah, maybe Wee Willie Keeler. But I hit them where they ain't. I'm always betting where all the bettors aren't or ain't in this, in this language we've chosen. My next question involves psychology. I'll start with Al on this one. Psychology. Over the years, a lot of people tell me when they meet me, oh my God, I can't believe I'm meeting Wayne Root, the famous handicapper. I want to work for you. I'm so good. And I go, okay, send me like a month of picks and we'll see how good you are. And then they lose 5 in a row and I never hear from them again, ever. They can't take losing. So I'm going to brag about losing now, and I want to see what you guys have to say in response. I've had terrible losing streaks. I've gotten crushed. And what makes me good is I survive it and I come back and I make picks the next week and I win the next week and everything's okay. It always is. I could lose 4 weeks in a row that you almost know I'll win 6 weeks in a row. I could lose 5 games in a row. You know I'll win 8 games after that. You got to be able to take the losses to be a great professional handicapper. Your thoughts, Al?
Well, I think that's absolutely true. I think another thing is you have to know why you're picking the games, right? If you have a methodology and you stay true to that methodology, then the wins and losses are kind of irrelevant. It's all about the handicapping process, and that's what I focus on. I'm only taking games that fit certain criteria. And if they don't fit certain criteria, I'm not playing the game. And really, whether or not I won the day before or lost the day before becomes irrelevant to me. It's all about the instant game, and does that game meet the criteria I need for me to have an edge in the play?
Al can say that, but losing 8 games in a row is enough to make you want to slit your wrist, right?
Oh, listen, we've all been there. I mean, if you're new to gambling, let me tell you right now, you remember the losses more than the wins, right? Because they bother you more because they're upsetting because, wait, no, you thought this team or this line was going to cover and it didn't at all. I've gone cold. I remember even last season, you can lose, like you said, you lose 6, 7 games in a row. And you're like, but you got to know that you're going to turn it around. Stick to your system. Don't start going, well, I'm going to pick a game and then go opposite of what I thought. That's the worst thing people ever do. So just stick to your guns. It will turn around. And if you're good, you're going to come out on top.
And you can't, and you really do have to forget the day before. For example, I had the Milwaukee Bucks in Game 1 against the Atlanta Hawks. Now, if I'm focused on the fact that I just lost on Milwaukee in Game 1, I might not take them in Game 2. Which would be a mistake because you can't remember your losses. You just have to forge ahead.
We're in the same business as an NFL quarterback. If you throw 5 interceptions in a game and you think about it, you'll never throw that tight window pass ever again and your career's over. If you blank it out or black it out and you never think about it again, next week you're willing to take the same chances, the same risks, and you throw 5 touchdowns. That's how you make the Hall of Fame. So we're in the same business. But I got to tell you guys the funniest loser story ever. So my first year as a professional sports handicapper, a professional, where I had literally hundreds of clients, was, I believe, 1986 or 87. Going back a long way now. 86 or 87. And I picked a game on Monday Night Football, and I think I took the Raiders. I think they were playing Denver, if my memory is right. And I had the Raiders, and at halftime, they were losing 28-0. And our service, I had a sports service with employees, and they got hundreds of phone calls. Wayne Root, F Wayne Root, screw Wayne Root, Wayne Root's a bum, Wayne Root's a loser, I hate you, look what a joke you are, 28-0. And they came back and won 35-28. You can't listen to these people, and you can't let the losses bother you, and you can't let the 28-0 scores bother you. I was on the winning end of that Buffalo Bill game where Frank Reich brought him back in the playoffs. Frank, do you remember that game?
Yeah, it was. Was it 35-3, I think, or 31-3? Yeah.
Something like that, yeah. Frank Reich brought him back, the backup quarterback, brought him back against, I think, Warren Moon in Houston, right? If I'm not...
Yeah, and Frank Reich, and the funny thing is Frank Reich had the biggest comeback in college history when he was a quarterback at Maryland, I believe. So this guy had magic with him. Yeah, but yeah, that game, you got to play two halves in the NFL.
I wonder if he brings that magic as a coach to Indianapolis. I wonder. We'll find out.
I'm sure he's got that story. At least all his players know about it. So when he talks about being down at halftime, they go, all right, well, he knows what he's talking about.
There you go. Hey, Al, I want to get you and Frank some input on injuries. Let me start with Frank, actually. How much do injuries affect your point spread picks?
Well, I know that's what my fantasy, the guys who play fantasy football a lot are looking for, right before kickoff. They're looking at injuries. Oh, my God, I got to bench that guy. I got to start that guy. That's what they do to play their fantasy football. I'm looking to make money off these injuries. Like if it's a key player, if it's a key offensive lineman, if it's a left tackle and you got a right-handed quarterback and that guy's out, you got to think about taking the other team. So I think late steam, late information is always very important. And injuries, I mean, look, again, there's a lot of guys on a football field, but one guy can make a difference. Not as much as maybe in basketball, but you got to look at the injuries, and the NFL makes these teams. They'll fine them if they're not true to their injury report, because the NFL knows there's so much money on these games. So it's huge information to get. That's why you can't put your bets in. I mean, I don't know about everybody else, but I like to wait. Maybe if it's 1 o'clock kickoff, 12:30, 12:45. That's when the lines move, right? Because a lot of the smart money's coming in. So you got to really pay attention to that and the injuries, I feel.
So, Al, I've watched you win for 30 years, okay? I've been by your side as a buddy and as a teammate on the same company and websites for 30 years. I've watched you win. But you like to put your games in early in the week. You tell me, here's the 5 teams I'm taking. What happens if someone gets injured? You don't care?
There's a lot of things you have to think about, Wayne. So let's walk through this. Number one, is the injury already a done deal? If it is, I don't care because it's already baked into the line, right? And now you have to look at things like, is someone questionable? Well, that's a different story. So if you've got a quarterback situation where a really good quarterback and they don't have a replacement guy behind them, if that quarterback is questionable, you may or may not want to wait until game time to make your decision. But here's the real thing for me as a sharp handicapper. I track this, Wayne, and I get the better number when I bet early 76% of the time vis-a-vis the closing line. So am I going to sacrifice, getting the best number 76% of the time and wait until game time just to see if a player may or may not be on the be out of the game? I'm not. I'm not going to cut off my nose to spite my face. I'm going to be advantaged half the time by injuries and disadvantaged half the time by injuries when you think about it, because the other team could have injuries too. So I'm going to be taking the line early in the week and get the best number.
There you go. That's why he wins more than me. That's why he wins more than me.
I'm going to give you a third perspective. We got 3 screens here and 3 perspectives. Here's the third perspective. I've been watching injuries my entire career. I'm not talking college now. College is a whole different ballgame. You lose a quarterback in college, the backup may have never thrown a pass before, since high school. You lose an important key player, the backup has no experience. So injuries mean something in college. But in the NFL, particularly in the pros, but in football, in the NFL, I play with the injury most of the time. In other words, you lose your best running back, the guy behind him was the greatest star in the history of his college. He just didn't play in the NFL for the last 2 years. But he knows how to be a great running back. Same thing with a wide receiver. Same thing with a tight end. Same thing with a backup quarterback. These guys seem like chumps in the NFL, and they hold a clipboard. But in college, they were the greatest player in the history of their university. So I bet on the backup player. and they usually come through. More than not. I won't say 90% of the time, but I'll bet you 55% of the time teams win with the backup player. So if it's an offensive lineman, that's more important to me. The average person doesn't even know he's out, and it's very important to guard the quarterback. So I may bet against the team or drop the bet if two key offensive linemen are out, but you give me a star player out, I bet on the team with the injuries, and I win more than I lose. Any reaction?
Well, the key thing is it baked into the number or not? You take a look, for example, and Frank will remember this game, the Lamar Jackson game last year against the Steelers. When he was out, that was the game that went from Sunday to Wednesday, if you remember, Frank.
Mm-hmm.
The line was 3.5 on the Sunday night before the week. By game time, when Lamar Jackson is out, and then it was played, 10 days after afterward, the line was 10.5, and the game fell 5. So, but once the backup quarterback's in the game, the number's baked in. Now the line's 10.5. And so now you're looking at a different thing than you would have been if Lamar Jackson was in the game and the line was 3.5.
And Harbaugh helped him win that game by making that game get pushed back a couple days. Remember that? Harbaugh really did some tricky stuff.
But that's an example backing up what I say. In other words, how can you bet on Baltimore without their amazing starting quarterback? Lamar is incredible. He could be in the Hall of Fame one day. And without him, they covered the point spread. Because the spread went so far, so high, you got value. I'm more into value than I am the name of the player. I don't care about a famous player. I care about value. And that's, I think, all you were pointing out, Al. What incredible value to take the same team plus 10 instead of a 3.5 point spread.
Well, I wouldn't even necessarily say you got value. I would have just said it was a fair line. One team is going to cover, one team is not going to cover. Just because Baltimore did cover that game doesn't mean there was value. It just meant that they had a 50% chance of covering the plus 10.5.
Hey guys, it's always great talking to you, getting your insights and getting your inside information about sports gambling. Frank, great to have you on. Big Al, great to have you on. God bless. See you next week.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you, Wayne.
It's over. It always goes too fast. Thanks for hanging out with us on Krush House Cappers. Hey, you could sign up and become a part of the Krush House gang and unlock all my picks for free, only at vegaswinners.com. Check out our podcasts, enter to win prizes, including trips to Vegas, to join me and the Krush House gang, to watch a game, all of us together, and break some bread. Hear all of our expert picks on the Krush House Network every week, and get our picks free at vegaswinners.com. It's free at vegaswinners.com. You just go there, you register, and it's all free. vegaswinners.com. Thanks to my wonderful guest today, the big man, the famous gambler, the famous technical sports handicapper, Big Al McMordie, and of course, Frank Nicotero. Great to have both of you stop by. And if you like what you saw or heard, come back and tune into the Krush House Network and Krush House Cappers every week right here on the Krush House Network. Thanks for dropping in to another episode of Krush House Cappers, because winning isn't everything, it's the only thing. Until next time, just win big, baby.